to Show X on VTWProductions.com.
Hello, hello, hello. You are listening to Show X live on VTWProductions.com, and it's a perfect time for my dogs to walk in. They heard me start talking at the very start and said, hey, that's a great time to come in. Hello. Welcome to the show. I'd like to welcome Mr. Wayne as well, who's also joining us, not by video, but by audio. Hello, sir.
Hello, everybody. How are you today?
Oh, you sound a little echoey, but it's all good. I think we can do that. We can do this. This is okay. I was a bit concerned because I'm hosting today, as you guys can probably tell, by the fact that nothing's working anywhere. I'm kidding.
Hey,
it seems to be running okay.
Goes.
Yeah, it's going okay.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. So yeah, welcome to Show X live on VTWProductions.com and live on Twitch and live on YouTube. So it's good for everybody to join us. Including Earthweaver, who's live on the other side of the show. Actually, we can see his legs live on air. Well, I can see his legs.
Yeah, Ken can see us, even if you cannot.
Yeah, and trust me, it's worth seeing, guys. I'm sorry you're missing out. So let's delve into things, but before we do, let us do the thing that I was supposed to do here, and play that thing.
Dysfunctional deviations.
Hey, all professional and stuff. All right, so we're at our dysfunctional deviations, and what this basically is we have 3 segments officially on the show that we kind of try to stick to sometimes. And basically, the first one is dysfunctional deviations, where we talk about whatever we feel like that is not geeky and is not news and nothing to do with the geeky stuff we have done, so that we can talk about ourselves and appease our own egos, as well as anything you guys want to bring up in the chat, etc. We can talk about as well. Don't ever feel like it's just us on the show. This is a community effort after all. So I'll go last since I'm hosting and give you a chance to speak and say your piece, especially since you've had such an interesting past week, sir, and I'm very, very interested in hearing all about it. In fact, past 2 weeks, because we both missed last week, didn't we?
So yeah, last week we weren't here, and so for both of us, we had taken time because we were traveling and vacationing and doing things that were not the show. And so I think both of us had an opportunity to share what our exploits and things we've been up to. Although, admittedly, a part of me was thinking about that, feeling like, at the same time, I don't want to be braggadocious about this, more matter of fact of what's happening.
It's hard to not brag when you're about to talk about what you're talking about. I understand. I've been rather jealous.
That what we have been doing over the last while, as we've been celebrating our own way into the new year, because admittedly, the new year itself, I did not go out and do anything fancy. Stayed at home and celebrated online with Copy as we went through. And for people who may have seen some of the posts, celebrated online virtually in World of Warcraft. And so for the New Year's, we celebrated the event in game. And it was one of those things that honestly, I think we were just hanging out. And I kind of threw it out there thinking, gosh, this is a huge game. It's been around for years. They celebrate all of the different events and different kinds of holidays and such. They have to have some kind of New Year's celebration in WoW, right? And so since I did not go out and do some of the other things that were possibly available to do, instead decided to log in game, invited Copy along, in fact also invited our show friend Nightmare Loki, who was hanging out playing games as well. And we all logged into Moonguard server and went and flew our way over Stormwind, because we figured where else to celebrate but the central square, you will, of Azeroth versus what it would have been with, in New York kind of celebration. And sure enough, did not disappoint, as there were, I don't know how many tunes logged in to celebrate, and we were focused on 2 celebrations. One was server time, which is essentially the time zone I'm in now. The central time zone here in the U.S. for Moonguard, versus where normally it would have been an hour difference, and it was so for both Copy and I. So we ended up celebrating essentially like 3 New Years in a way. Copy's was kind of lightweight in the sense of like, oh, hey, it is time. And then we all got together for the server New Year's and then continued on and celebrated my own New Year's a little bit, which was great. But it was fun because, again, not knowing how many people were there, but there were folks everywhere, and probably, I guess, an advantage now to having flying mounts everywhere, in that we sat on our mounts above. Oh, look at that! You were able to get our video in there.
I cheated.
You found us.
I did a window capture. I cheated, but it still works.
Hey, that works. However, it works to get us in there. As Copy notices Earthweaver over my shoulder. But yes, that we got in and celebrated, and it was fun because we set our flying mounts, and at the New Year time frame, or when the hour went, and I guess we kind of looked it up, and I think Blizzard was celebrating every hour on every server, essentially, for around the world for a 24-hour period.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that time, and I would love to have known what others saw in other cities or where else it might have taken place, at least over Stormwind, there were fireworks that launched into the air throughout. And I know people were screaming in trade chat all kinds of New Year's wishes and things like that, which is pretty fun.
That's surprising. I would have thought they'd be screaming New Year's obscenities, to be honest. That seems more like Moonguard style, really.
It was surprisingly straightforward. And yeah, no, it actually wasn't bad. It worked out well. So that was cute. It was fun. It was a neat thing to kind of do. So enjoyed that. It's really, and honestly, it's probably was for the best because as much as I had a little bit of that left out feeling, and I had just seen pictures and stuff from people who went to more fancy events over the years,
Sure.
I realized it was probably best that I didn't. The state of mind I was in, it was probably good to hang out with friends in a quiet way online, have a drink, and celebrate virtually.
That's a very healthy way of thinking about it, and the truth is, sometimes we feel down, and sometimes it's good to just hang out and have a chill one, Especially considering, dude, you had a lot on at Christmas, and you had a lot on the week after. I think having a little break in between was well earned. I think you deserve some quiet time.
It's just one of those things that as much as I do have a bit of introvert in me, and most people wouldn't believe it, there are times when I think it is absolutely essential, and I do need to recharge, so that was a good thing. And yeah, as Copy is saying in the chat, there was a comment in there that said, "There's a death knight on my back." Why is there a death knight on my back? And then realizing that's where Nightmare Loki had, since she was part of our party, was able to jump on Copy's whatever form she was in that allows you to ride. And so we celebrated together, but it was a good time. And no, it was interesting because people did mostly comment in the nicest of ways. But from that, and partly why it was good is because I then had to the next day pack right up and fly out to where I'm at today, actually, here in Cedar Rapids, because I was meeting up with Earthweaver so that we could then travel out so that we could go to take a trip out of country for a little bit of sun over the beginning of the new year in a
Very
similar
nice.
way, but different location than you. And so on our end of things, we went out to the island of Barbados and at the southeast tip of the Caribbean. And we spent just over a week there with the college that Earthweaver works with. They
so
do
it's a work thing. Okay.
So essentially, they do an international trip once every 4 years, and an opportunity to go do outreach with other teams who do volleyball and things like that. And so he brought some of the members of his current team and some alumni and such with to Barbados. There's an opportunity for the whole team to get together, go out of country, and to basically show off their volleyball skills to other teams in the world. In this case, the Barbados, was it their national team or?
No, it's two of their club teams.
Two of the club teams that Barbados had available to play.
Wow.
Which is really interesting, and it was a neat experience both for the players, the students that go here, because it does open up their aperture and kind of their view of the world. In fact, I talked to several of the gals going that this was their first trip out of the country.
I was about to say that actually because I know in America, in Europe, obviously, you can travel 20 miles and be in a different country, and it is a different country in terms of culture, maybe not so much weather, but, culture and architecture and everything. You don't experience that so much in the US because, you go from, Nevada, and you go all the way over to Florida, or you go all the way up to New York, and you'll often find it's mostly the same, right? Weather changes, but the people will have similar accents, similar culture, same money, right?
It is
same laws, more or less.
It is less of a culture shock than it is traveling different countries, especially in places like Europe, let alone other areas of the world.
Yeah.
I do try to express to people who are from, especially like the European Union or just Europe in general, that it is similar in the sense that our landmass, we do get a lot of difference in some cultural aspects, but it's not as harsh a difference. We get some language, some cultural things that are different, but for the most part, since we're all members of the United States and all in the same country, we have a lot of things that we take for granted that are the same. Mm-hmm. So going to a different country is still a very unique experience. And for some of these gals, especially from a lot of them are ones who were pretty much born and raised here in the Midwest. And so they're not anywhere near another border, the oceans, things like that. This was an entirely new experience.
Good point. Was Emily's first time seeing an ocean?
I don't think it was anybody seeing an ocean for the first time, was it? Because I know for some of them, they definitely talked about, like, one of the gals grew up in New York, another gal had at least traveled out to California and stuff like that, but it might have been a couple of theirs. And along with the trip as well, which helped keep things in order, where several of the gals' parents came along.
Oh, that's good.
As well as, like, Earthweaver as the assistant coach and the main coach and such, and I was thankfully able to come along as a guest. And so went out there and initially focused on, well, for the gals, the entire trip focused on as much time as they could possibly spend on the beach in the sun.
Of course.
That was their, I think, primary, if not only goal, the entire trip.
Understandable.
For the team as a whole, though, some of it was kind of that cultural experience and going around. So one of the first things we did when we got there, after adjusting for a day, is went to a cricket match.
Okay.
Which match was it?
The regional team.
It was a regional match that was going on with the Barbados team versus another against Ghana, which was a really big match that was happening. Interesting, though, because this one was set up as a 5-day event. And so with cricket, for anyone who does watch, not quite what, from an American perspective, you're used to seeing at a lot of sporting events where you'll have masses of crowds going nuts over the event. Because cricket has a pacing to it, we showed up and there were maybe, 100-something people there?
Yeah, I mean, for a regional match, it's less. If it was the actual national, it was a full house.
Yeah, but so enough that we were able to sit kind of wherever we wanted and get it in. And nicely, because we had guides who were part of kind of the overall tour group experience that was set up for this, really brilliant gentleman, Greg, and his son, Brian, that helped us out. Brian was there and explained the game very well to us because most of us walked in there not having a clue how you score or what any of the rules were. And so after watching it for a few hours and kind of just catching on, we, I think, had a better understanding and appreciation for what it is, the game of cricket. And I have my thoughts on it as to why it was invented. Much like golf, I feel like it was a way for people to get away from their responsibilities and families for some length of time.
I believe so. I asked my dad about this when I was about 14. I said, Dad, how can you enjoy watching this? Every time I see you sitting there watching cricket for 4 or 5 hours, you fall asleep. And he says, well, that's why I watch it. It's great to fall asleep to.
Well, and that was the thing that for people playing it, right? Because there's pacing where you start off playing and then you take a lunch for like an hour. You come back, play another bit, and then you go for afternoon tea. And then you continue playing for a bit before you end for the day and go home and then come back the next day and you do it for like a week. And so it feels to me it's like me hosting a game fest, but it's an opportunity for blokes to get away from their families for the week and say, oh no, honey, I would absolutely be here for your family, but I've got a cricket match. You know?
I'm a professional. It takes a whole week.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, it was kind of like, okay.
Is there a females cricket? There must be females cricket.
Oh, there must be, but this is just the team that was out there. And
there is.
Entertainingly, the majority of the people, like, there's only a handful of people on it that really do a lot of effort, like, per pitch. You know, the actual bowler and the batter are the ones who do the most work at the main part, where most of the outfield are just kind of there until the 1 or 2 balls that come their direction. And so,
well, I think that's kind of how they hire people, right? They just see like who can stay awake the longest standing still.
Who can stand the longest? But I got to give credit. Both teams that were out there were in such good shape that I looked at them. I was like, "What is your workout regimen?" Because it's not the game itself.
Well, no.
Because you are in such better shape than that. Anyhow, so we took in a cricket match. That was fun. Got to see some of what was going on there and talk a little bit through the culture and things about that in a way, which is a good introduction, I think, for the gals. You'll hear me reference it a lot for what the gals were doing because it was, I think the focus, even though it was an experience for all of us, the parents and the coaches and such, was focused on what opportunity it was for these gals
Of course. I mean, you always care what the younger crowds experience. Like, it's like Christmas, right? Everybody loves Christmas, but if there's kids there, you want to make it Christmas for the kids, right?
Special for them, yeah. And so it's kind of those things, and that's one of the things that, it just was always in our mind was what are the gals doing? How do we make sure they're getting the most out of what they can from the experience? Because I've been to Barbados once before off a cruise for a day and stuff like that, and things. But even then, I've traveled more than most of them have. But so that was good fun. I mean, it was slow, but at the same time, I think we made the best of it. And the gals were a little unsure, but they, in the end, I think appreciated it. Bus back, and there's a full group of us going around. There's like 16 of us, so it was another challenge the whole trip of getting all of us place to place, because Barbados is, used to be British colony, and a lot of the roads and such are very narrow, and so the transportation is not all that robust. They do have full-size buses, but they're kind of only the city buses. So most of what we got into were smaller vans that admittedly could hold 14 or something people total.
Mostly 16. A few of them we made work.
Well, so that was the one. We had a couple where there was at least one time I was sitting on the floor in the middle of the aisles to make it work. And
that reminds me very much of my ski trip in the US. We did the similar thing. The gear was all over the place, so we had to sit on the ground and over people, and yeah, I remember.
You make it work. And there were several times we had to take 2 taxis to get to a place and stuff like that, or multiple. But it worked out, although that was part of one of the challenges throughout. There were events kind of planned for majority of the time there, with plenty of time for relaxation and stuff in between. The resort we stayed at was right on the St. Lawrence Gap, which is a area that is pretty much focused on tourism on the southern edge of Barbados.
Okay.
And the one we stayed at was, the DV Resort?
DV Southwinds.
DV Southwinds Resort. And it was nice. I can't say anything bad for what we had, because somehow it managed that the coaches, and me staying with Earthweaver and the other coach with some of the other gals that were kind of chaperoning the event, ended up in penthouses, for the resort.
Nice.
Which didn't translate into anything super, super fancy, but was nice, and it was something I've experienced before, where it had 2 floors, essentially the top story of there, where you walked in, and the main floor had a kitchen, a washroom, living room area, and a balcony looking out, and then steps up to the 2 bedrooms. One had 2 single beds, and the other one, I think, a king bed or something. And a nice bathroom upstairs as well with shower and such. But it was a way to step away and have some space to kind of stretch out. Where most of the other rooms, which were still quite nice, were more like a hotel in what you'd expect.
Sure.
But all of them had like full kitchens with ovens, stoves, microwaves, everything. So it was really nice. You could definitely spend some time there. And they had, a couple pools. It made sense, no hot tub, because it's Barbados and it's always warm.
You don't need a hot tub, yeah.
Right.
The tub is the hot tub.
So, yeah, everything there. And because being on the southern part of Barbados, the beach itself was very swimmable with a nice enough sand. And the water, I thought, was really warm. I think some of the gals said, "Oh, no, this is super cold." I was like, "You've never been to a cold ocean." I grew up in San Diego and consider that ocean ridiculous.
You're never going swimming at St. Andrews Beach, yeah.
Yeah, anywhere in Scotland, right? Anywhere going in is hazardous to your health.
It's not. You learn to swim quickly.
But yeah, so being in the ocean in Barbados, no matter where you went, it was quite nice. But they also had things like a miniature golf course. They had shuffleboard. They had tennis courts. They had...
It's fun.
Yeah, they had water activities for people who wanted it, including the morning water aerobics and the afternoon water Zumba.
Yep.
That they had, which was entertaining because we'd walk by and see some elder gals in the pool and this local gentleman standing on the edge telling them all what to do. It was somewhat entertaining to watch. But any of that, the location itself was nice. Every morning we had breakfast provided, part of the deal, at a restaurant that was kind of attached to it, called Pure Ocean. And they had a lovely spread of kind of a breakfast buffet. We did some activities throughout the week, but the main thing was going to do the volleyball matches. And so we took what?
I'm kidding.
No, it was.
It was.
So, we did 2 days in a row. There were 2 sets of matches. A bit of a challenge because going there, it was past the holiday period for the locals. And so the club teams were consistent of people that have their normal everyday lives, school, job, thing like that, and a wide range of ages, all the way from, I think the youngest we saw was 17.
That Ashley played was...
That one gal, right? But somewhere in the
Probably
range of like
16,
16, 17 for the youngest, and the eldest we guessed
Probably 40s.
was in their early 40s. So a wide range in age, but neat gals, putting a lot of good effort towards it. And it was funny because I think the first day's match, the team, they played well, but the gals with their coordination coming through as a college team did pretty darn good against them right up front. I think swept them 3-0 in the matches in the first day. And then on the second day's match, that team that came in, I don't think the gals were quite ready. I think they had it in their mind that it was going to be an easier match than it turned out to be, because they found themselves down 0-2 in the first part of the sets and had to rally, come back, but did, and ended up beating them 3-2. And so they won both their matches, which was really good. And that second one was really entertaining to watch. Like, both sides, they had some great volleys back and forth, some good serves, some good plays all around. And I think it was because the first team, I know, they didn't really set up any like rotations or things like that while the match was going, so they pretty much played where they started. Where the second team did actually react very well to what the Iowa team coming down provided. And so for me as a spectator who doesn't know a whole lot, I was entertained and thought it was a really good time. It was also nice because it went 5 matches or sets or whatever. The gals were working, and it is warm and humid in Barbados by comparison to pretty much anywhere I'm at. So just bounced around a little bit, you felt it. And like for me, when they were warming up, I was shagging balls and kind of doing some things like that, and I felt it. From the matches afterwards, you could see the gals were just swamped because at the same time they only had 6 gals actually playing, so a full team, so they didn't have any substitutions the entire 5 sets, where the other team was able to actually substitute out a bit. And so the gals had to, test their constitution and see that they could play out that entire time themselves. And I give them good credit for doing that. It was nice.
That sounds tough.
No, it was, but they did a great effort. It was fun to watch. So with those 2 things accomplished, we had the opportunity for doing a little more sightseeing and enjoying the environment that is Barbados. And so other than beach time, because like I said, the gals took a lot of that, we did a couple tours. One of the big ones, probably the highlight for me, was they did a Jeep tour of the island, kind of set up to be a 4x4 experience. Now, admittedly, from me being a Colorado boy and knowing what off-road sports could be and things like that, it was lightweight and tame in the sense that it was really just a couple of nicely fit out Land Rovers, or Range Rovers, whatever, where the back was set up with seats, which I will give credit, thankfully had seat belts. They were needed, absolutely necessity. Belted in and set so you're sitting towards the inside of the pickup of the truck, and they drive you around somewhat of town, but mostly on these kind of back roads and into these fields and things through the sugarcane. And so they'd hit some kind of just rough kind of country roads, not truly like rock crawling or anything like that. But I'll give credit. Our driver was there to entertain, and at least one point got us airborne for a moment, and like actually bounced the whole truck
that's
off.
cool.
And things like that. But definitely set it up where he'd give enough room and then really gun it up roads and such so that Earth and I were in the back maintaining control of the gals. It was just enough room that was us 2 with the 6 younger gals from the team. And it was great because we have video to prove, but thank goodness for GoPros. And we got to watch as they just tore around these roads, and the gals all bounced around having a good time. Beautiful weather, breeze coming through because it's all open air, and some discussions of like some of the things we saw on the islands, some of the plantations, some of the history of how the sugarcane industry was big, things like that. All of these fun things was really good time, and basically it was like having an amusement park ride for an hour or so with a couple stops to look over some of these beautiful vistas and things from some of the higher ground. So that was one of the highlights for me, just seeing Barbados from a really entertaining perspective. The other one we did that was similar, but from a different perspective, was we also did a catamaran cruise where it was initially meant to be early in the day, but one of the things we also learned on Barbados, and for anyone who's been in the Caribbean, it's probably experienced similar, everything was scheduled on island time. And so while we were very punctual for how we would...
Yes, there are certain countries in the world that seem to follow this this interesting mindset.
It's a looser, you know.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of Germany or the opposite of Japan, right? I mean,
Yeah.
here in the
absolutely.
UK, we're very punctual. We're like, if you need to be there for noon, you're there at 5:02 at least. Probably quarter to,
Absolutely.
right?
Well, and the way that the team does it, because they're dealing with gals in college who are the first time out actually having to maintain their own schedules, right? They are very adamant about, we say a time, and that time that something happens, but everything the team's doing, you're going to do it on team time, which is 15 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
And so
Good.
for every event and everything we did, all of us were there. Bam, ready to go. And so we had several situations that were best described as hurry up and wait, where we were all there ready to go, and then we'd sit there like,
How very
all right,
military.
so where's the taxis at? Okay. And I think where it first hit us was actually dinner, because breakfast, it was serve yourself each night. But no matter where we went for dinner, I think we had one or two opportunities the week or so we were there that broke the norm. But most of them, we'd show up and we're like ready to go, get ready. Even we'd maybe get a drink order in, or our initial food order or something like that. Food order would be in. You pretty much had to expect that dinner was going to take 2.5 to 3 hours.
Oh my god, I could not do that. That would irritate me to no end.
It was a struggle, and we did have to kind of like, what do I want to say? We had to adjust ourselves, our expectations, because the first couple we were like, oh, I'm hungry. We did this, especially in the worst case was because it was after the volleyball matches. The gals had done a ton, and so they were like starving. And we show up, order, and we're sitting there just like, food? And so that was a challenge. But by, I want to say, like the third or fourth day, we'd come to a better understanding.
Yeah, that's the thing though, right? Like we may think that we're right in having a more punctual mindset, but when you're the guest in a different country, it's not what we think, it's what their culture is. And if that's their culture, then we just gotta adapt, even if it's not the most efficient thing.
We had to understand a bit, and it was interesting because our tour guide, or the gentleman that was helping us throughout the trip, made comment about, actually I think it was his son, it was Brian that did, when he caught us at one of the dinners, because they had a goal of seeing us every morning before we took off or anything, and every evening before the end, just to make sure everything was going well. Again, very well taken care of. But there was one point where we had walked down and done a dinner that we had kind of set up, and he came and found us partway through, and was just like, oh, hey, you guys are here. I was like, yeah, why, what's up? He was like, I was at the hotel looking for you guys for when dinner was, but apparently you'd already left. We're like, well, yeah. We said we were leaving at this time, so we left at that time.
Yep.
And he was kind of like, yeah, and made the comments like, you guys are always very much leave right on time. and how that was not the norm for the island. So that was entertaining. But beyond that, the catamaran tour was lovely. We went snorkeling at a couple spots and took dinner as the sun set. Which is really neat to be able to get out over the ocean and watch the sunset, the skies, and hopefully you'll see that. Anyone who saw my social media, I was doing a follow-on post there. You could kind of see what I was doing. And I tried to put on my Death's House Productions page several pictures that I had taken while out there. Now, granted, I also was challenging myself on that sense because I only brought my phone and my GoPro.
Yeah, so that was an interesting choice. Can I ask what made you come to that decision?
A couple things. One of the main ones is that my Canon 7D, my main camera, is still down because I haven't sent it in to be fixed. I could have reverted back to my 20D. It works. It's beautiful. It's just a lower megapixel. Secondly, I had booked my travel out to where I am here in Cedar Rapids via one of the airlines here that is notorious for charging extra fees for anything that you bring beyond like yourself. and I had only paid to check a bag, not for additional carry-on. And so I didn't want, and I will not check my electronics. You know, I carry my electronics on my body as much as I can.
I understand why.
And so space was a consideration, and then partly it was because I knew that Earthweaver was bringing his camera, has the actual role of documenting what the trip was about for the gals and everything. So I figured I'd bring my new GoPro, since I have a Hero 7 now, and my phone, and because the iPhone X that I have has legitimately a decent camera, and I've seen some really nice photos taken, that I was going to challenge myself to take phone pictures throughout and see what I could do.
So what was your own opinion of that experience?
Well, giving myself actual time, and by all means checking out my... I shared it so that more people could see it, so it's not just on the Face Crack. It's on Instagram as well, so if you want to check out Death House Productions on Instagram, you can see any of my photos that I did for that, and I tagged it as phone photography, as well as for the Barbados trip. You can check it out there and judge for yourself the quality. I will say there was some challenge because using a phone is not as stable as a full-body SLR camera. And so holding it to hit the buttons, even though you can't click the side buttons, it just... There's that lack of a sense of, like, physical structure of what I'm holding and controlling. It's like, for people who shoot weapons or anything, or gun, if you shoot a gun that's too light, it can almost feel less precise than one that's got a good heft to it.
Absolutely.
And so there's a piece of that where I just always felt like, am I actually going to get the photo I want? Now, advantage, I would take several shots, and I kept playing between the built-in Apple photo app and a ProCamera app that I downloaded that let me do some more manual mode. So I played back and forth with that a bit. And I kept playing with, for anyone who saw, and I think I posted some of them on my Predictably Ham page that were on Instagram for some of my selfie-type shots. But I used some of the portrait mode on it, where it blurs out some of the background artificially, and just kind of see how that looked. And I gotta give credit, I actually liked the results of that a lot, in many cases. So, I liked it. It was fun and interesting. Does it compare to my SLR? No. But much like I've commented even for you, Ken, I have seen you do some amazing things with a camera phone, which is what you have on your phone.
In the end, I mean, when you're taking any photo, even if you're using a, old 1997 Kodak or something, disposable, right? In the end, if you have a good subject, the photo will turn out all right at the very least. 'Cause even if you have the best camera in the world, if you have a terrible subject, it won't come out very nicely. So
this is true, and that subject being either nature itself, whatever you're shooting, or heaven forbid, people you were trying to work with.
Yeah. There are two sliders, right? And both are important, I would say. Having good equipment is important, but also having a good subject. And the third slider, of course, is skill, which is important too. But then again, luck is also important, I guess, as well.
All of it.
Yeah.
Well, it's what you bring yourself, right? And so I felt like it was a good challenge, good fun doing it. I liked a lot of the photos I came out with. I had a fun time with my GoPro. Some great videos I took from the different events we participated in. I can't wait to get back and kind of play with those. So it was a really good trip. From my own perspective, it also satisfies some of my loves in life. One, fun, sun, beach, those things. And because it was Caribbean, rum. So much rum.
It's also neat to have an excuse to hang out with your brother as well.
So that was one of the things. Part of this trip and part of the reason I agreed to it, because, again, there was also a thing where this was a financial thing that I hadn't planned for, and so I will be paying for this as soon as our government unshuts down and I can get a tax refund. In that, a big draw was the fact that Earthweaver and I really have not been able to vacation together as adults. Everything I think we had done was really much as kids and family. And so just the idea, and partially for me is also because this is his trip. And not something I had to plan, organize, or do anything with. So I, heaven forbid, get to go and basically enjoy myself. Where it seems like almost every traveling thing I've done over the last couple of years has been pretty much me doing it. And so that was also another draw. And I would say it was absolutely successful. But I as I was saying about the rum piece, I drank many rums, lots of rums, rum punch for days. The hotel had a welcoming rum, at least it was designed to be, I believe. They would set out some containers with chilled punch or rum punch.
Nice.
And it was there for, I believe, new guests who were coming to the hotel each night.
You hope so, by the way.
Well, it seemed like it was a lot of the air staff, like people who were flying or were either from cruise ships or different airlines flying in and staying the night before flying out the next day or a couple days later, that would stay at the hotel resort we were at. Because we saw several different flight crews, uniforms, heard different accents. A lot of Brits and a lot of Aussies where we were at. Come in.
The biggest hubs for travel, I think. That makes sense.
And so those are some of the main airlines that come into Barbados directly. And so they stayed with us, but every night when they come in, they'd have those punches set out. I think several in our group, coaches and myself, the chaperone types, found our way down there about that time each day to at least enjoy a glass of free rum punch.
to help finish it off, to help make sure that they didn't waste it.
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
it's a charity thing, really.
They never quite finished it, so we wanted to do our part. Let alone, I also found we found a local mart, and I picked up a bottle of local rum and a bottle of vodka.
Oh, nice.
I also, at some point, picked up some Calypso rum cake, which is their local one.
That sounds good.
Made with the Mount Gay rum from their rum factory, as well as some of my favorite ones, which are Tortuga from Grand Cayman. I picked up a little sampler set for that to bring home, because love me some rum cake. But the challenge was, while I consumed a healthy amount of rum on this trip, healthy amount, I don't think I ever honestly got a buzz the whole time.
I can tell you why.
Like, I got a moment of one where I was like, oh, hey! And then I'd look the other direction. I was kind of like, am I sober again? Really?
I can tell you why, and I think you already know the reason.
Oh, I have ideas. What are your thoughts, Ken?
Well, considering you live in the mountains above the clouds, I think the altitude difference probably has an effect on your alcohol intake and or more importantly, your feeling of alcohol intake.
Apparently, all that oxygen down at sea level allows for the body to process things like alcohol much more readily, without as much detriment. It doesn't saturate your blood as quickly. And so, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the same reason. Because I think I tried. I know I tried. But even then, I don't think it really hit. Because any opportunity I had, and some of the excursions had opportunities where, and much like I've experienced in other islands, where when you're on a paid trip, like the catamaran and stuff like that, there's opportunities for basically as much alcohol as you want to partake. Mm-hmm. And so I know I did. And nope, really didn't feel it. Oh well.
Did you ever feel it the next day?
No. Never
wow,
got a
even better.
No, well, that's the thing. By the time I go to bed each night, I was like, all right, go sleep. And admittedly, and this is horrible to me, I think I slept maybe on average 6 hours a night.
Roughly, give or take.
Give or take, because Earth and I made a point to get up a few times to go see the sunrise. I was one of the first ones, but I think it was because I had consumed so much liquid that I woke up out of necessity far earlier one morning to relieve said fluids. And so I was already up. I was like, screw it. I see light in the sky. Let me go out and get the sunrise. But I did that more than a couple days. I think I saw 3 of the sunrises there. And most of the nights I went to bed basically close to midnight each night. But no, it was a heck of a relaxing and fun trip. I got a good share of sun. I got to experience those kind of things. I am purposely editing out some of the things that may or may not have occurred. And speaking on my behalf of the experience, Earth, is there anything you would like to add, share, or otherwise that you think is appropriate?
The biggest thing you probably missed out on would have been the Harbor Lights.
Oh, yeah, Harbor Lights, which is one of the somewhat a cultural event that you might find with different results and stuff. This is one that they have for people off the cruise ships and things like that. It's really an interesting one in that it's a dinner event. Again, it's all you can eat, all you can drink when they start it. But they have shows where they have both live music. A gentleman out there who's killing it.
Yeah.
He was hecka talented. Some performances by acrobats and dancers, both somewhat modern as well as
on stilts.
Yeah, the Stilts
Awesome.
guys, but also some people that were more cultural, some of the gals in there, and more island wear, doing crazy dances and such, which is a lot of fun. And then at the end of the evening, they opened it up to just being essentially an open club type environment where they just kick a DJ on and multiple stages, bars, and people just enjoy the night. And that was a really good time. There's some other things, because we spent a day at the beach where we actually played some sand volleyball. It was meant to be a tournament, but again, because of the schedule of the island and people having to go back to school and work, we couldn't find teams for that.
Oh.
And so that ended up being, we did play a match, but it was more just, those of us who came and some people who were vacationing who jumped in because they thought that looked fun. And actually did fairly well. Whatever gentleman from, was it the French gentleman?
The
or
guy off
other-
the cruise ship.
Yeah, the guy off the cruise ship, he pushed. He worked hard. So,
Yeah, all right.
and entertaining in a way because it's, a couple randoms and then a couple of the gals' moms, myself, but a good portion of the people playing being, the coaches and the players. But at the same time, I'd like to think I held my own.
Nice.
We have pictures and video. We'll let people
There
see.
is proof out there, not necessarily the prettiest, but it's out there. I had one dig that I know I'm proud of where it was going out of court off the backside of ours, and I just leapt forward and knocked it up, and apparently it went over and stayed in because I turned around and it was still being played, and I was like, oh, hey.
Nice.
So at least one of those. Beyond that, anything else? I think those are like the main highlights because
Yeah,
I didn't
those
want to
main
spend the
highlights.
whole time talking
You
just
easily
about
talk
Barbados.
about it for a long time, but yeah, those are main highlights.
Yeah, that's the main thing that happened. Also, shout out to Wayne Jr. Still not sure if Wayne was his actual name, but definitely called him Junior for a lot of the people.
No, it was his
But-
actual name.
Older gentleman that had a shop next to a couple of the bigger ones. I forget what it's called officially.
I don't even think
Because
we
it was
know
called
the
like
name
it was
of
called like Franks and something's whatever spot, but had the best set of drinks we encountered on the island. It was he had made initially daiquiris of various types, and you have the pictures.
Fresh fruit is good.
And essentially, his menu was dictated by what fruit was delivered that day.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
And so pina coladas were off the chain, but our first night we had strawberry daiquiris that were probably some of the best strawberry daiquiris I've ever encountered. So strawberry daiquiris, we had
Mango, banana.
Yeah, mango and banana daiquiris were his other main flavors. And so he was popular enough that after we had put most of the teams and stuff away, we made a point of stopping by and saying hey every day that we were there. Say hi to him. And he, at first I don't think he had believed us. But by the end of the trip, he was just the nicest, most genuine guy. Like, even the first night, we tried to tip him, and he looked at our money and was like, oh, no, you do not put that much, like, American cash down. If you were somewhere else, they would probably just take it and not give you good change, but I won't do that. So here, take your money back. It's only this much, and stuff like that. Like, it was almost painful to tip him. He was so nice about it. And he explained himself to us several times, saying that it wasn't about the money, that he does fine and enjoys it, that it was about the experience and ensuring that people are having a good time. And
What a good
trusting and stuff
guy.
like that. Oh, my goodness. And he's older than us.
He has some of the smoothest rum.
Well,
Yeah,
it sounds like he's got
so-
a great outlook on life as well as on, work, because having that kind of attitude towards your customers means they'll come back as well. I mean, it's actually a smart business move as well, right?
Well, and we surely did, and it felt like everyone on the island knew him or in that area in the Gap and stuff. So officially, Jan-Frank Cocktail Bar, St. Lawrence Gap. The sign continues to read, "The best in music, your choice. Have an experience with us and tell the rest. Bar solid. A daily special, buy one, get one free. Thank you. With telephone number redacted." And I say that because at the very bottom line has the telephone number, but it was just big black, like, painted over.
Okay,
Almost like-
I wasn't sure if you were redacting it or if it was on the side. Okay,
No, it was because of the sign. The way the sign was written, it looks redacted,
cool.
which is great.
That's very SCP.
But yeah, big shouts out to that location. If you're ever down in Barbados and you have a chance to go to the St. Lawrence Gap on the south side, check out that little bar because, again, some of the best frozen drinks we've ever experienced. Best fruit. It was so tasty. So that was a long and short of the overall trip. It was bracing to come back from Barbados where we had basically mid 80s the entire week there to fly into Chicago and have to drive back through the winter storm that came in, and where it was down below 0 C, below freezing the entire time on our drive back, with roads to prove it, and snowed throughout the day yesterday, and now it's still because
It's melting.
Is it melting?
A little bit, but it's still out there.
I'm in one of these places where snow likes to stick around. It's weird. Colorado would be gone.
I saw a study last year. Well, not a study. It was more like a request for research, where some academic body was saying we think that there's going to be some kind of connection between people who travel a lot through different seasons, different climates, different like altitudes and pressures, and some health effects. And considering what you guys just went through, I imagine you'd be good test subjects right now to see how that affects the body and mind. You know, going from really hot, summery, dry kind of weather next to the ocean to suddenly Chicago and snow.
Hey, for me it was fine because I soaked up enough good sun energy while I was out there. I felt that I was prepared to come back. And so I'm feeling good about it.
That's good. Hey, vitamin D, don't shake that, man. That's a legit thing for like legitimately for depression. One of the best things you can like. There's no joke. The old sort of like when you have a depressed teen and the mum says, "Oh, go outside and play outside for a few hours. It'll make you feel better." It actually does. Vitamin D is glorious for you, for your mind and body. So good.
And from the time on the island, I will say it absolutely was. It's funny too because a couple of the gals coming back were a little more adamant about their displeasure in realizing what they were about to travel back to from what they had. Because as much time as they spent on the beach and as much effort as they put forth to trying to cook every layer of skin they could off of themselves, they never had enough. We had one of the gals who even had basically like heat rash coming up from like too much sun. And I explained, I was like, that looks like heat rash. Like, you should probably avoid too much more sun. And she's like, like,
I don't get that, man. I'm the opposite of that. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go hide inside. I've been outside for 2 minutes. I'm going to go sit and retreat in the bar for the next 8 hours.
I slow rolled myself into it. I went out for a bit, got some sun, a little bit sunscreen all over.
Good. I was going to say, that's important.
I was kind of like, I feel like I've had enough. I'm going to go inside to the air-conditioned room and read my book, play some games for a bit, let myself cool off. And I slowly would give myself more and more time in the sun each day. These gals, I think, from the first time out there, spent like 4 to 6 hours the moment they could just sleeping out there.
If I did that on the first day, I'd be in the room for the rest of the week because I'd be dead.
Well, one of the other gentlemen that came along was pretty pale skinned and did suffer, enough so that at one point he went out because he was trying to spend time with who he had came with out there, that while sitting together on the beach, because initially he wanted some shade, she wanted some sun, they compromised, went out to the beach, and we saw him with his like safari hat on, shirt, swimsuit, but a towel over his legs.
I empathize with this man.
Wait, no, it showed his knees. He had to catch the knees up in sun.
He's going to have sunburnt knees.
The towel was below the knees.
But for the most part, he covered himself physically to maintain it to a degree. And he did mention, because he was pretty pink for a couple of days, which is entertaining.
He was doing the Michael Jackson. Did he bring his umbrella around?
Well, I think he was trying to hide under some of the ones on the beach. But no, it was a great time. It was great fun. I would go back very quickly. I could speak more to some of the environment of Barbados and such. Like I said, it was good fun. It definitely has a wide variety and economic scale, which we did see, which is interesting and just kind of how things are at there. But again, another country, and in a way that it was interesting. Stuff I've seen before, depending on where you travel and things. But anyhow, that was my side. I know we need to get back to what you've been doing for sun and fun, Ken, because you also were out and about. In fact, probably closer than many people would expect. Then.
Yeah. So I've had a bit of an equally, well, I wouldn't say as crazy, because you guys sound like you've had it sounds like an alien world, the Caribbean, to me, and it sounds like something that. Okay, so in Europe, when people talk about Hawaii and the Caribbean, that's how I imagine you guys think about the Mediterranean and Italy and France, right? Like, it's so far away, it's a different world, it's alien, right? So when you talk about the Caribbean, it's like I think to myself, I hope one day when I'm like in my 60s or 70s, I can like afford the time and money to be able to go there, because that's a huge endeavor for somebody in the UK to go all the way to the Caribbean.
Really?
Oh,
There's a ton of UK people here.
Well, they have.
British Airways flies straight here or straight there.
Let me see, Barbados.
So I don't know how much anyone spent to get there, but I will tell you, we saw a
cheapest
ton
flight
of Brits.
The cheapest flight is £700, but most are 1,100 to 2,000.
Ouch.
And the 700 one, you're doing a lot of connections, So, yeah, it's tough to do things like that from here. But anyway, so it does sound very exotic to me, and I'm glad to hear that you guys had the best time, and I'm glad to see that you're both also looking very tanned and sort of shiny and happy faces as well. I'm really glad to see it. All right, so yeah, let me jump into my side of things. So in the past couple weeks, there's obviously been a lot happening. I'd like to wish everybody all the happy holidays. Now we did I missed the show on the 30th, so I do apologize for that. And as such, I want to say Merry Christmas to everybody, because I haven't seen you all since Christmas. So Merry Christmas to everybody, one and all. Hope you had a great one. On Christmas, we just stayed here, and we didn't really do anything particularly exciting. We had a nice quiet one at home. I cooked everything, and that was fun. It was a bit of a challenge, because this is the first year ever that we've both been, well, I'm pescatarian and Kitten is vegetarian. So I've been pescatarian for about 3.5 months now, and Kitten has been vegetarian for years really. But she changes from like vegetarian to pescatarian to vegetarian to vegan, and she's not eaten meat in years though, right? But she's always sort of arguing with the ethics in her mind and moves back and forth between the different things. And then after a while, the ethics sort of take a side to the fact that there is no food here that is vegan I need to eat, and then she changes to vegetarian or whatever, etc. So yeah, and I'm pescatarian for the most part, but I will eat meat, and I gotta say I ate meat in the US a couple of times because there is such little variety of vegetarian food there. There's just so little. Honestly, compared to here, it's crazy. I couldn't believe it. It was a case of, here is the vegetarian dish. If you don't like everything on it, you're screwed. And I was like, what? This is crazy. Like, do I just order sides?
So,
like,
there are a lot of places where, so it's different. The United States is absolutely a country that is founded on the beef industry, the corn industry, tobacco industry, some of these major things. And so not just culturally, but all of our supply chains, all of our main meals and things like that are based upon those specific facts. And so it is, in many ways, difficult for us to see not having those kind of things available at most meals. And it goes back to the idea that, and especially if in Vegas, if you ever wanted to go silly, right, that's where you can go get yourself a 64-ounce steak.
Yep.
You know, easy. And so the idea of all vegetarian dishes for us has been more of a, wait, you can't afford meat?
yeah.
I don't understand. And so, it's like, well, here's the salad. I mean, okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what I felt like. It was like this is technically we have provided an option that is vegetarian, but now back to the real menu, which is all meat, and it's so much meat.
Now,
I also can't believe that the majority of breakfast stuffs tend to be 2 plates. It's just crazy. I don't understand why you'd have 2 plates of food. It's just mental.
Oh, well, so here one of the big things is that for breakfasts you tend to choose all of your proteins, vegetables, things like that as 1 plate, and your carbohydrates as a second plate. Be it anything from a toast or a bread of some sort to normally what you'll see is pancakes and waffles and things like that. That's
the thing, though. We don't even at dinner we'll have 1 plate. It doesn't matter what meal it is. There's never so much food that you need 2 plates. Right? It's the quantity more than anything that I think flabbergasts me.
You didn't use the right size plates.
Yeah, apparently. So I'm going to go. Well, I think we should go to our break first. Take a 5-minute break here before we continue, because I've actually had a flu since I got back from Vegas, and I'm at a stage where I need to go and relieve my sinuses. And I'm trying
Fair.
not to sneeze all over the camera. So,
Okay, we will go to break and come back with Ken's adventures in Vegas.
Absolutely. So we'll be
after this.
we'll be 5 minutes 16 seconds. I'll be sure to wave frantically at you when I'm back. You'll see me return, okay? Because Wayne can't hear the music, of course. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. You're about to listen to, this is a Creative Commons playlist I found on Spotify, which is really nice, actually. I was playing it before the show. This next song is from Binar Pilot, as before, and the song is called Project Wildfire. Please do enjoy. You are listening to Show X on VitaProductions.com.
Wildfire. Bun Bun's ticket up and out of here. Project Wildfire was the code name for a prototype craft that theoretically could break the big one. Could break the speed limit of the universe, the light barrier. And it worked. Sort of.
You are listening to Show X live on VitaProductions.com. Welcome back from the break. We finished the break a little bit early because, one, I wasn't really enjoying that song, and two, I got back in time, so it's fine.
So we're here to give you more show!
Yeah, more show. 3 minutes more than expected. So, welcome back. You are listening to Show X. Right, let's continue on. So I was going to talk more Vegas stuff before we go into our next section, so we're continuing dysfunctional deviations in the meantime. And I'm feeling slightly healthier after the break, so thank you.
This is good.
Yeah, I can talk again. Okay, so I wanted to give a... Yeah, so I was talking about Christmas and stuff, and I went on a brief tangent about Vegas. So with Christmas and everything, we had a few days of relaxing and enjoying some time off. I actually played some games and stuff. I don't know what you guys got for Steam on Christmas, etc.
Very little for me.
I got a few. Well, that's because for one side, I actually didn't buy you games on Steam. I instead sent you some books, which was a bit different because I know that you complained in previous years that you had too many games to play.
Many games.
Yeah, exactly. So
never play them all.
Exactly. So I decided to send you a couple books instead. But for Christmas, I know I received a few things, and I picked up a couple things myself. And by myself, I mean Kitten Features actually bought them for me.
Nice.
She said, "Here, there's £50 worth of Steam stuff. Go buy yourself some games." So I got Just Cause 3, which I've played 30 hours of because it's lots of fun. It's
nice.
just easy, ridiculous playing. I've barely touched the storyline, but I've like finished like 80% of all the islands. Like, so basically, what you do is you go from town to town, and I should really talk about this more in the Geek Cred section, so I'll hold off. But yeah, I got a bunch of games, and I'll talk more about that later on.
Yeah.
So Christmas was good fun, and then we were kind of like, our Christmas was kind of like subdued because we were thinking about, oh my god, we're traveling to Vegas soon. Like, so it kind of made Christmas a little bit quiet for us. Then we, on the 31st itself, we travelled very early in the morning to London. About 8 a.m. in the morning, we travelled to London. And then from there, we got our flight to Vegas. Now, the plan was to stay up really late the night before so that we were tired on the plane so we could sleep. So so Kitten fell asleep about midnight, and I fell asleep about 3 a.m., 2 a.m., half 2. And so that meant I got about 4 hours sleep, Kitten got about 6. So we should have been able to sleep on the plane, no problem. Kitten did. I did not. I really, really, really struggled to sleep on planes, and it was a long flight. Yeah, it was about a 12-hour flight.
I was going to say, especially on trans-ocean flights, that's just the worst.
Yeah, so 12 hours later, I was still awake. So we arrive in Vegas. We're a little bit like, oh god, we're actually here. We're really actually here. It was pretty cool flying over, actually, because I remember looking at the window at one point and being like, oh, those clouds look really weird. And then I sort of realized, oh wait, that's like ice and snow. That's Canada. I'm looking down on Canada. So, copy, I was above the land of milk bags last week, technically. I remember I met this one person, sorry, total tangent here. I met a person a few years ago who said, oh, I've been all over the world. I've been to the US, I've been to Hawaii, I've been to all the South American countries. I was like, oh, wow, that's crazy. What are they like? Tell me what some of your favorite cultures are. And he said, oh, well, I've only actually landed in a couple. I was like, it doesn't count if you fly over it, you absolute twat. You can't just say you've
mark
been
it off
places.
if you've been there and spent some time.
Like, I don't even count it if I've been in the airport for a couple hours, because that you don't experience it. That doesn't count. So, anyway, so we got there on about 6:30 p.m., even though New Year's had already passed where we came from, right? So when we flew from London, it was 2018 and turning into 2019. But by the time we arrived in Vegas, it was 2018 again. So we were officially time travelers. We actually went back in time, which was a bit weird. By a whole year. We had a whole year back in time. So we arrived at 6:30, and we had organized some travel from the airport. And so we're looking around for, a name tag with the name Reed on it. We're walking around, can't see anything. So I'm like, okay, this is getting annoying. The last time we went on holiday, the same thing happened. So we both started looking at each other like, not again. So I pull out the number, and I'm like, oh god, I didn't want to turn my phone on in the US because there's going to be charges and stuff. So I made the call. I called the company that we booked through. They had thankfully had a 24-hour number, and they said, you're going to call this number instead because they're the local agency. And I said, I don't really want to make any calls to the US either because that's going to cost money. And they said, well, we can't do that. It's against our policy to call the US. I was like,
oh, God.
Okay, I don't seem to have a choice. So I called the agency. And after like 6, 7, 8 phone calls of doing back and forth, them telling us to call the agency telling us to call the local one, etc., they basically said to us, oh yeah, the guy was at the airport 2 hours ago, you weren't there. And we said, that's because our flight landed 45 minutes ago. Why was he here 2 hours ago? That's not our fault. So we're still currently battling this, actually. I've now complained to the company. They owe us $160 of travel fees because we ended up having to get a taxi. And I'm also requesting that they pay us back the phone call fees because that cost me £40 to do those phone calls.
Oh,
£40. Ouch. So basically, around about £200 they owe us for all this. We ended up getting a cab. The cab was $15. It was nothing. It was just cheap as chips. Yep. If I knew that was going to be the case, I would never have pre-booked any cabs in the first place.
It's one of those questions I was going to have. If I had known any of the details of what you're doing, I would have been like, so dude, Vegas.
Well, I was thinking that, but I also thought, it's New Year's, maybe they'll have crazy rates. Because I know in here, in Britain, if it's New Year's, you pay 4 times the rate. That's just the way it is.
So for here, the challenge is because it's New Year's and because alcohol is involved throughout, and it's Vegas, it's alcohol 24/7. So it's pretty much the same no matter what. And partly also because Uber and stuff has become such a challenge that No, they absolutely
risk that.
maintain it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we eventually got to our hotel, the Mirage, in Vegas, around about 9:30, 10 o'clock. So we were there for a few hours, which was the right pain, because we were planning on having a nap before New Year's, but we didn't. So
Of course.
instead, we go head straight down to the bar and we start drinking. We go. There's a place called the Rum. It's called the Rum Bar, and it's spelled RHUM, Rum Bar. It's an outside area. Now, the first thing that really shocked us about Vegas was, and I kept saying this to Kitten, but for about the past year since we booked it, she kept saying to me, "Oh, you're gonna burn. You're gonna be so warm. You're gonna bring suntan lotion. You don't have the right clothes." And I kept saying to her, like, "It's gonna be January," and I looked at the weather for the past few years in January. I think I'll be fine. So she dressed. She didn't bring the right clothes, right? Like she just had it in her mind. She's like, "Oh, it's near Death Valley. I've been there before during the summer, and it's so warm."
It's always relative, but yes.
So that was quite funny. So we get to the Rum Bar and it's freezing because it's an outside bar. So we had to like wear our jackets and stuff from Scotland. They had like these like outdoor like heated lamps and stuff, which helped. But there were so many people like crammed in there. Now the website said paying this reserves you a table, but it turns out in the small text it says if you're the first one to get a table. I thought it was a case of we're spending all this money to get a table. No. That's just entrance. However, on the bright side, it was not BYB. It was all you can drink. Like, help yourself.
Yeah, open bar at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, and they had a mixologist behind it. Not a very good one, but he still could make drinks. So So we made the most of it. We're like, okay, I've been up for like 28 hours. I'm just going to drink myself into having a good time. And that's what we did. We just drank a lot of rum and a lot of... I just kept saying to the guy, like, surprise me. I have no idea what I was drinking. I was just like, make me something.
That's a good way. Hey, that is one of my favorite ways to drink, especially at an event. And I've done it in Vegas. I've done it anytime where you have a decent bartender. I will either pick a color or a base alcohol and say, you make me something. I don't want to choose. And so... often I'll say, make me something with rum in it, especially somewhere warm. Or I usually say, make me something blue.
Yeah.
And go from there. And I will let him go.
I either said to him, make me something different this time. And I told him I like cocktails. I like a variety of things. You know, I like a variety of ingredients to make a nice drink. Or I'll listen to what other people order and I'm like, I want to try that too. Like one guy said, I'll have a pineapple sour with rum. And I was like, I have no idea what that is. So I tried it and it was quite nice. Thing is, the portion sizes of the alcohol is so crazy in the US because in the UK we have very specific measures that are a legal requirement, and if you go over it, you can lose your alcohol license. Right, it's a big deal, and it does happen. It's a really big deal here. It's because we have such drinking problems, right? So we have a lot of really strict laws regarding alcohol. So when I asked for like a rum pineapple or whatever, he poured like half the thing as rum, and I was like, oh my god, this is awesome. Because when I'm at home, that's what I pour for myself. So I was drinking like me measures all the time. It was great. It was
I love that this is your experience.
Yeah, it was awesome fun. Now, I have some pictures that I was hoping to show, but the screen sharing thing is not working at all. My graphics card doesn't work with OBS, sadly. But yeah, we had a lot of fun at the Rum Bar. We drank way too much. Kitten got a cigar. I did not have a cigar because I've had bad experiences with them in the past.
Because they're gross?
They are gross. And plus, well, the last time I had one, I made the mistake of being rushed.
Did you inhale? Oh, no.
No, I wasn't inhaling. I knew how to do it. I've smoked a few cigars over the years. But I was told, like, okay, you've only got 5 minutes, finish it. And I was like, this is a Cuban, man. I got this as a gift. And they were like, no, you got to rush this. You got to do it now. We're doing something else soon. And I was like, okay.
Oh, God.
And yeah, I ended up being quite ill that night. Anyway.
Yeah, that's horrible.
So there's a few crazy things in general. One was the Trump Tower was there. Seeing something actually belonging to Trump. Well, yes. But the Las Vegas Trump Tower, a big gold phallic object in the middle of Vegas.
I remember when it was built, yeah.
It's crazy to see it because it's like, wow, he's actually a real thing. He's not just like a fictional
He's
news
not just
thing.
a Cheeto you see on TV?
Exactly. He's not a comedic thing, well, a currently depressing comedic thing on TV. So that was a bit weird to see that in person. There was a lot of just gaudiness around Vegas that was quite unusual in the fact that there's just all these really old machines. People seem to be really glorifying like the whole Elvis scene, and it was just like, you know, all the stuff that you see in films that I thought was kind of like faked for films. That's actually kind of what it feels like there. I was actually kind of surprised.
Dude.
Yeah, I know.
Vegas, baby.
It was pretty crazy. We went to the alcohol store, the liquor store, and That was crazy as well. The drinks that you guys have over in the US is just absolutely mental. The variety of things you can get. So
Yes,
we got
bring alcohol from all over the world, and we create a lot ourselves.
yeah. So we got the Captain Morgan's Long Island iced tea. I did not know this was a thing. I've had Long Island iced teas before, but we make them in bars using ourselves. I've never seen the pre-mixed
Yeah,
one.
the premixers.
Oh, it was so good.
Take it, throw it in a glass, drink.
So good. I loved it. It was like I just went and got like a big bucket of ice from the hotel lobby, and I just had these massive glasses full of them. It was fantastic, and it was like $5. It was like, how is this a thing?
Yep.
It was just so fun.
Hey, so I remember for your actual wedding, when I took you to Costco, and you saw that they had 3-liter bottles of vodka, and it hurt your brain.
It still does.
The fact that, well, like I said, when I buy alcohol, I buy it by the handle, which is a 175 liter.
Yeah.
Here, because I figure it's the most economical.
Absolutely.
When I was there in Scotland and we were looking at liquors, and the fact that you couldn't get more than a liter at a time if you were trying hurt my brain, and especially for the prices.
You can, but you need to have like a special license that says I own a company that sells alcohol and we need this for behind the bar or something. That's the only time you can do it.
We just get like cash.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you guys acquire kegs of beer? Are you able to get you can
get baby kegs. We have them like this size. That's the ones you can buy in the shops.
That's not a keg.
No. That's it.
But can you go to a store for an event and rent, essentially, the 20 gallons of beer that you can get?
I have never heard of that happening, but I imagine you can. I think
we can't what is it, kegger? You can do a kegger like $40-50,
cheap,
right?
Oh my god!
Here in the States, which gives you more alcohol than you can consume. When we did the nice one for Game Fest that I got sick at, I think it was like $150 overall for the keg, for the baby keg. And for us, a baby keg is the size of like the drink canisters you get for sodas at restaurants. It's kind of like one of those bigger canisters. And that one still, and I think most of that money we got back, but the actual beer itself was less than $100, I want to say. So yeah, no, it's the U.S. Like most of our portion sizes, we like excess.
That's fine. That's understandable. I just googled that we do have kegs in the UK. They're just very rare. Nobody tends to buy a keg because parties tend to be quite subdued here. And if you had a keg, it'd be pretty crazy. I think most people don't drink beer to that quantity. Beer is seen as sort of like a pre-drink, I guess. Most people sort of drink liquors and stuff when they go out.
Okay.
So there's also some other things. Just I know this is gonna be so boring to most of our listeners who are American and are novice, but even your energy drinks have like I saw the Monster one has coffee Monster.
The Monster Java one.
So crazy to me. It's
if you're gonna get your caffeine, get it cold, because cold brew is such a thing now.
Well, cold brews are great, but that's not cold brew. That's cold brew plus Monster. What?
So why wouldn't a company that's already giving you energy try to take away from the coffee market?
That makes sense.
Right?
That makes sense.
It just makes sense. And so once the fact that Monster, I forget who their parent company is, if it's Pepsi or Coke or whatever, but yeah, absolutely makes sense. I saw that, I just chuckled. It's like, I won't drink it because I think it tastes like booty because it's coffee, but yeah. Although, on that note, I did introduce my brother to, proper, English breakfast tea.
Oh, nice.
It was good.
The way that you taught me to make it. So, as every morning for breakfast, we had that on the island.
Bravo, you taught him well.
So,
nice. I'm glad you shared our cultural knowledge.
Yes.
That we stole from English.
Absolutely. The quantities that the United States does regularly for both food, because we have so much land that we do so much agriculture here in the U.S. that it is easy for us to get into a state where we have excess.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Part of the challenge of it is because our industries have built themselves off of mass consumption to the point where they've done bad things along the way, too, where we can't reuse food like you would in other countries. We can't send it to, homeless shelters and stuff when it hits past certain dates and stuff. They've made that illegal because that would cut into their profits. And so there's a lot to be said for it, but because of that, man, yeah, we can...
Oh, trust me, I'll touch on the ethics.
Of whatever.
I will touch on the ethics soon enough, but
I know you're waiting to.
I'm going to hold off to the end of the journey, though. So I also managed to try Four Loko for the first time. That was interesting.
That was when I saw that picture. I was like, oh, why you do this to yourself?
Well, it was something that we had to try because we heard so much about it. So that was interesting. Yeah, it was not nice. It was not an enjoyable experience.
No.
So the main thing I should really talk about, and it is the absolute main reason we went to Vegas, was we got married again. And we had our second wedding ceremony, but this time it was to renew our vows by Elvis, because why not?
Las Vegas.
Because it's Vegas. So this was at the Graceland Wedding Chapel, which I didn't know that this was where this was until a couple of days afterwards, because we got a limo there, of course. A cheap limo. The whole thing was only a couple $100. Like it was ridiculously cheap.
You can get married in Vegas for pretty much nothing.
And it was like a conveyor belt. Like, okay, here you go, and here's the guy singing, and here you go, and out the door, and there you go, pictures done by.
Yep.
But it really was a great experience. Like, the guy sang for us, and they took our video and bunch of pictures and stuff, but we didn't really care about any of that. We just wanted to experience it. We got our own photos outside, and that was fine.
I love the pictures that you had that I saw posted because, one, props to you and Kitten Features for your outfits. You absolutely engaged in a Vegas wedding.
So that was the plan, right? We actually talked about our uniform for like a year beforehand. And mine was nice and simple. Mine was just, I wanted to wear a tuxedo shirt, and I wanted to wear shorts with like way too many pockets, and sandals. That was and maybe sunglasses as well. That was my go-to. And most importantly, I wanted to be drunk. That was the other thing. Ken wanted to do a sort of like trashy Vegas wedding style, so like really low cut top, really high up skirt, and you know that sort of thing. Also be very drunk. She looked great. She looked absolutely amazing.
You two were phenomenal, though. You two were great.
Oh yeah, she looked far too good for it.
I smiled.
So when we were waiting in the chapel, this obviously, since I said it's like a conveyor belt, so like there was like another couple that came in behind us, and they were like fully like wearing their tux. It was like their proper wedding, and I felt so bad because I was like, here we are doing like our, you know, we're enjoying ourselves and stuff, but it's like we're kind of taking the piss a little bit, right? We're kind of like, look, we're getting married.
Exactly what you were after. They got exactly what they were after.
Absolutely, that's what Ken said to me afterwards.
Okay.
That's what Ken said to me afterwards.
Beauty of it. Well, and that's why you can go to the Graceland one. You can go to the Mobile one. You can go to the Church on the Strip. You can go to, you know, every casino, every hotel there has a chapel.
Yeah.
Because also Vegas is famous because the fact that you went with like a year's planning to go renew your vows
is rare.
Is so outside the norm for Vegas. It's usually
you show up.
Let's get married! Woo! Yeah!
And that's why they have the 48-hour annulment in Vegas, right? Because like, so many people
yes, because it is, oh my gosh. So even then, you were leaps and bounds more planned than most weddings in Vegas.
So I'm not going to share my screen because I can't, but what I'll do is I'll download one of these pictures, and I will show it here. Give me one moment. Just to show the wedding.
While you're setting this up, Ken, and getting that going, I will say that my end of the show is brought to you by Black Velvet, a caramelized whiskey that
sounds lovely,
phenomenal. It is candy in a glass.
So
it is so just smooth and caramel flavored. It tastes like dessert, and it's a whiskey.
So anybody who that does sound delicious, by the way, sir, and I'm quite jealous of you having that and me not. So anybody who's in the video, they can see this. There's a picture of us at Graceland Wedding Chapel just after we were shoved out the door. The limo driver took some photos for us on my phone. So there's I didn't end up wearing the shorts because it was too cold, to be honest. So I put my jeans on, and there we are. Yeah, we got a little bouquet and everything, and it was so fun. It was ridiculous. We sang Elvis songs to each other and got loads of great photos, and it was just a lot of fun. So we really enjoyed that. And then we just went and walked around the strip as if like there was just another activity. It was we went to where did we go after that? Oh, I can't remember.
But did you go dressed as you were?
Yeah, we did. We didn't change. We were just
because of that. Did you get response from people on the strip? People.
Yeah, but not in a good way. Like we had a couple people who were like, "Oh, congratulations!" Usually tourists, but the locals were generally like, "Oh, congratulations! I've got a free offer for you because you're just and they're trying to like sell something, right?"
Yeah, well,
and I was like, "Oh, screw off, guys!" Like,
one of the things you'll see for anyone who hasn't been to Vegas, and this will, I'm sure, will lead into some of your conversations, Ken. when you actually walk the strip, meaning you go between the major casinos that are on the Las Vegas Boulevard, Las Vegas Strip, majority of the people that are just standing there are there to sell you something, be it a pass or a ticket into some other venue or event, or a quick picture with someone in a costume, or on the side, quick something where they want cash on hand.
Yep.
But everybody there is to try to make a buck from the tourist industry that goes to Vegas. And so with that in mind, my personal recommendation for most people is act as though the locals who are there trying to engage do not exist.
Mm-hmm.
And just continue on with your day. It is the easiest path, and they're used to it, so don't feel like you're offending them. They are absolutely used to the fact that most people ignore them, and that they are highly aggressive if you even give them the time of day, if you give them a moment's attention.
There are some places that are worse than Vegas. Like, Vegas isn't the worst for that. I know that
No,
if you go to Egypt or something, like, not only will they try to talk to you in Vegas, they'll in places like Egypt, they'll come up and talk to you, and they'll grab your hand and they'll grab your purse and they'll try and pull you towards them. They'll physically take you towards them. You have to like push them away. You have to be physical. So it is actually not as bad as other places in the world. But if you're brought up in Britain, where we're told to always be polite, it's a really bad thing actually for women in the UK. Is that they're taught to always be polite, and that's often a really bad thing with pervy guys. If a guy comes up to you in the club, is really drunk, doesn't take your sort of
doesn't take your polite no for an answer.
Yeah, not even a polite no, just like obvious body language, trying to turn away, clearly ignoring you. If a guy's too drunk, unless they're explicitly told no, they'll keep going. In America, I think you guys have it a lot better there, where people have a lot more confidence. People are willing to be like, no, I am dancing with my girlfriends, go away. And they'll say that. Here in the UK, they'll be like, no, I'm okay, that's okay. And it can cause a lot of problems. And I think there's also a problem with tourists. British tourists who go to these places can often be taken advantage of. A little bit too polite, when you need to kind of be more adamant, say, not interested, thank you. And that's that. Move on, keep walking, don't stop. Another thing that was a bit crazy to see was just a generic, completely normal fact that there's lobsters everywhere. Here, to get lobster, you need to go to the highest of high-end restaurants. But in the US, they're just like, oh yeah, it's like $5. Here, it's live. We'll catch it and we'll cook it for you. That is crazy. It is seen as a super exotic thing here.
And part of that is because Vegas, through the history, has had a reputation for providing delicacies at very reasonable prices. And so a lot of that has lingered for the years. That's part of the thing. You go to the right place. In fact, I think it's Binion's or something down on the old strip. You can still get it's like a 48-ounce steak dinner for something like $20. It's something ridiculous. But it's only a certain time and up in this one place. And also, like on the old strip, one of the things that's funny is you'll see several places on the strip where you get like shrimp cocktail for very cheap. Some better than others. Don't get the shrimp cocktail outside of Circus. That's garbage and will make you sick. But if you go down to the old strip and go down to, I forget the name of the place, but they have like a $1.99 shrimp cocktail. It's either $1 or $2.99. That they give you prawns. They give you full on like big shrimp it, where people are like, what? And it's like $3. Yeah. As you get that, and you get your fried Twinkie and your fried Oreos, and so it's like. It's something where I always tell people, and Earth and I were talking about it not long ago, about how Vegas is actually trying to re-encapsulate their moniker of being an adult playground, and not just because there was a time where they tried to make it for families, and we're like, that's dumb. But they've come back to more of this fact that this is a playground for adults.
Yeah.
To go do kind of whatever you'd like.
I was pretty disgusted by the people who were bringing their kids, to be honest, especially in certain places of Vegas. Walking down the old strip, we saw a bunch of dudes who were naked except for a thong, and they're trying to make money by dancing around and stuff. We saw girls dressed down similarly, just wearing as little as possible to advertise either themselves or strip clubs, and they're giving out their number and stuff for clientele for later, right? Like clearly just prostitution open in the public, and there's kids walking by like watching, like, what is this thing going on? I don't know what's happening, and the parents are just like, yeah, we're having fun, like. That seems a little inappropriate to me. I don't know. It's a bit weird. I wasn't very comfortable with that. I don't blame Vegas as much as I blame the parents bringing the kids there. Like, what are you doing?
Well, and that's the thing, right? Because like our folks took us to Vegas on trips as we went to visit, like driving to visit family in Nebraska. But it was always to stay at like Circus because they had some kid-friendly activities. and it was just for the night and head out the next day kind of thing. And we never really saw the strip or any of the other things. We just knew it was Vegas, and like the most our parents would let us do, because we always got their biggest thing was we'd get the buffet, and back then I think the buffet there was still like $5 for kids or something.
Oh, some of them are free for kids actually.
Well, and some are free, right? So they would take us to whatever buffet, and we could. It was one of the times that they let us run wild. It's like, yeah, pile your plate with whatever the heck you want. We don't care. It's all you can eat, right? And they would let us like pick a machine to play a slot on, where we'd put like,
oh my
let
god,
us put some amount of money in, and we'd point to a machine, and they'd go play it for us, right? And that was like it, because the kids weren't allowed to go actually down to the gambling area. You had to stay up, but you could see it from kind of the arcade area. You could see some of the gaming floor, and so they would do that on our behalf once or twice, just so we could see the idea of gambling. And it was just a silly thing with slots, but that was like the limit of what our folks ever did for us. So we didn't know what Vegas was. Right? That's not something we learned about until you got older. But I do know what you're talking about, and I've seen, right? I've seen it. Actually, that's funny. Copy saying that it's like having people bring their kids to Anime North. The challenge is, like, I've seen kids at Dragon Con, and I've seen kids at all these other events. It's what you let them experience, and because you can manage a lot of these events that are mostly adult oriented in ways that kids can have a perfectly safe and fun experience there.
If there's like kids' playgrounds to like drop them off, and there's like daycare type stuff, absolutely fine with all that, right? I don't see a big problem with all that. But it's when you start taking them to the place where there are naked people, that's when I start having an issue with, you know?
There's some levels. And like I said, it's funny because I've also been to the old strip in Vegas where locals would bring some of their kids down because there was free entertainment. And so like when they would play some of the live bands and stuff like that, they'd bring their kids down to some of the stages where the kids could go, then they just let their kids go dance in front of the live music and then take them off after like a band played. And they'd go elsewhere and stuff like that. So I've seen how it's been managed, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. And yes, there are some things that are definitely much more for adults. And, you know, I've seen parents make some interesting decisions for what they do to raise their kids.
Yeah, to say the least. So, one other thing I forgot to mention about the wedding part of side of things. The place that we actually were for the wedding, Graceland Wedding Chapel, nice little chapel and stuff. But I didn't see what the area was like. We walked through that area the next day, going from the new strip to the old strip, which is about an hour and a bit walk. And of course, us being from the UK, walking places is normal, and that's how you travel. In the US, obviously, most people get transport, and there's a reason for that. There was just poverty everywhere, and I'll touch on that a bit more. But it was not a nice area. It was not nice at all. Pictures in Discord.
Area? Which area were you talking about?
Between the two strips. So going from the new strip to the old strip.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It was fine during the day. I mean, there were still some characters around. But on the way back, I had my camera, and I was taking photos of like some of the graffiti and stuff. And then we saw, as twilight hit, all these characters came out of like the shadows. And I was like, uh-oh. And Kid was like, put your camera away. Like, we need to call a lift. And we did. Because we started getting followed.
You don't walk between the strips.
Oh, we did. No, we did.
I mean, you don't, Ken, because that's where people hang out.
That's where people die. Yeah.
That's where people take advantage of those in town who don't understand how things work in Vegas.
So let me finish with the niceties before I go into this all the sad stuff. I'm trying to avoid it too much just now. We saw all the important things like the stratosphere. We explored a lot. We went to the what's it called exactly? The Erotic Heritage Museum. That was quite interesting.
Oh, I haven't been there.
That was interesting. And of course, weed is legal in Vegas, and it was really weird to go to a dispensary and see that, you know, they just have all this weed on display. And they're like, yeah, this is the different types of varieties, and they discuss the chemical compounds.
Yeah. Come skiing in Colorado, Ken.
It was crazy. It was just absolutely mad. They were very kind, very knowledgeable, the people who worked there as well. We were very impressed. And it's just crazy that it's legal, but there was nowhere to smoke it. Like, there's nowhere in the entire Vegas you could smoke it.
So it's one of the ways they get away with stuff, because even in Colorado, the funny part is the way the law states, weed is legal to smoke both medically and recreationally. However, the only place you can smoke weed legally is in a private residence or a designated space that is like a weed bar type thing. that it is
Same with
illegal
Vegas
to
minus the
smoke
last
it.
part.
It is illegal to smoke it in public, anywhere, and it's illegal to do things under the influence of weed. I say this while also telling you that pretty much no one follows any of those laws. And so...
It's the same with Vegas, right? Like, everybody was walking around smoking everywhere.
Yeah, take it how you will. But I say that because in Colorado, one of the things that pisses me off, actually, is that people don't follow the law, because it would be much nicer if I could still walk around certain areas of downtown and not get high off the process.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in a way, but that's how it is. They realize that once it's legalized in most of the areas, that in many ways it's not worth the effort to basically ding people for every little infraction they do. Instead, they hold out for people who are doing something even more off or wrong, and that is an opportunity then for them to then
make a statement.
Get someone on something that is illegal, but that they wouldn't normally get you for.
Yeah, absolutely. We also went to IHOP, which was great. We went to Denny's 4 times because it was just it was really close to our hotel. Okay. It was nice and cheap.
Vegas Strip Denny's I actually like.
Oh yeah,
I actually like the Strip Denny's. I prefer IHOP in general, but I do like Strip Denny's. There are certain places on the Strip that I will go eat, and Denny's is one of those I've done way more than a few times.
Oh yeah,
it's surprisingly big. Their service is fast, and their food's actually all right. And it's 24/7, so it's like that is a go-to spot for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So okay, that's the majority of things I want to talk about. This sort of. Oh, we also I should also say on the way back we went to Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, and we dropped by to see Kitten's sister, which was good.
Yay!
It was the first time we'd seen her in a long time, since last Christmas. And it's the first time we've ever seen her in her home. It's the very first time we visited her in Philly ever. So that was really nice. It was only for 12 hours we saw her because it was in between our flights. But it was really good to catch up and see where she lives and just spend some time with her. And I think both sisters really enjoyed seeing each other, so it was good.
Nice.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the thing that I've been avoiding, which is I thoroughly enjoyed Vegas for the experience, and there's a lot of, especially the wedding part. Of course, that was time immemorable, right? It was just a moment in my life that I'll never forget. It was fantastic, and a lot of Vegas I did enjoy. I enjoyed a lot of the food. I enjoyed a lot of the sights. I feel like a lot of Vegas is where I would hope to see us in a utopia, where there's just riches and lavishes everywhere, and where there's clearly lots of care taken into enjoying the whims of every sense input in places you go to. Like if you go to a restaurant or you go to like a shop, you'll find not only have they made it look nice, they've made it smell nice, they made it sound nice, the music's not too loud, not too quiet. They've made the experience with the staff really nice and pleasant. The tipping system does actually mean that people are always very, very nice in most restaurants and stuff, which is a good thing. Even though I don't believe in tipping generally, but that does add to it, of course. And even when you walk around the shops, they make a point that the textures of everything's nice and open. They leave the nice fuzzy things close to the entrance, so you want to touch them. Clearly, they actually think about this stuff, right? In the UK, it's very much...
Everything in Vegas is designed to entertain and to bring you into an environment and try to keep you there.
Yeah, and I like that, right? They do the environments really well. Every single shop and restaurant, at least on the Strip, is well thought out. Probably because it costs millions of dollars every few months to keep a shop there. So you need to have some kind of pool, and you think about every single inch of the shop, right? But still, I think a lot of that was great, and a lot of the culture was really good. I like how the people were so polite. So not used to people like saying hello on the streets and stuff all the time constantly. If you walk by somebody in the corridor in any of the hotels, they always said hi. The staff, even the cleaners and stuff, were all so nice and pleasant, always smiling. And again, that's something you don't see here. Nobody talks to anybody unless you know them. That's it. That's the rule. You just don't talk to strangers unless you're in a bar, had a couple of drinks, and you're sitting next to somebody. That's a bit different, right? But if you're walking on the street, if you say hi to somebody, they're going to assume that you're starting a fight. Why are you talking to me?
That's a bit different.
Why are you talking to me? Are you trying to fight me? It's a bit
that's
weird.
Not quite how we are.
No. So there's a lot of ups and downs, right? Okay, so there's a lot of good things with Vegas, and I did enjoy the experience, and it's definitely something everybody should do once. For all the reasons I've said, and also
or
for this.
Yearly.
I wouldn't say yearly, because one of the main reasons that I wouldn't want to go back, at least anytime in the near future, is I felt bad putting money into that ecosystem. Because when I look around at the extreme luxuries, and at the same time, just on the Strip as well, I saw people who were clearly in need of medical detainment, right? They needed to be, sedated and put into a room. some people were walking around, like the first day we were walking around after New Year's, so the 1st of January, right outside our hotel in a nice area of Vegas. There was a really, I don't know how to describe it. Somebody who was clearly high on drugs, or really wanting to be high on drugs, I should say. Clearly had a lifetime of drug abuse, probably violent abuse as well, by the look of this girl as well. Very poor hygiene, very poor clothing, and scraggly looking. And I felt very sorry for her. And she was speaking as we went past her, and she was twitching as she went past, and she was saying, I would stab for $1. I'd stab for some meth. I'd stab for $1. And she was saying this not quietly, very loudly. She was nearly shouting this. Of course, because it's very loud in the middle of Vegas, you had to be quite close to hear it. But, she was still... And I have never met anybody like that in my entire time in Britain. This was my first full day in Vegas. I saw somebody like that. And throughout the week, we saw 3 or 4 people in similar states of withdrawal or being really high on something or other. I'm assuming meth. And clearly in a case of, why are they out in the public? These people are openly saying, I want to hurt the public. I want to stab people. I want to hurt them. I would do anything for money to get money for my fix, right? They're saying it out loud. Why are there no authorities dealing with these people? Why is the government not doing something for these people?
They haven't done anything illegal.
But they're saying, if I went into the street and said, I'm going to stab somebody, I would be arrested. I that's breaking the law here.
Here it's not, because until you actually do an act, or you do it in such a way that you're inciting violence on others, it's not illegal.
And
the only time it becomes illegal here is when you actually say something to a public official like, I'm going to go do something negative to the president in a bad way, right? When you start doing things like that, it takes on interest. When it's just the saying that you might, that doesn't get anything. It's the only time it goes different is when it comes to schools and stuff like that.
Sure. Where
it's kids and things like that might be violence, then people care.
Sure.
But if it's just a general, it might be an issue to the public, does not matter.
Well, I don't agree that's a good idea. I still think we do that better, right? I do think that's something the US should implement. But to further that point, the fact that these people are clearly high and off their face on not weed, right? It's nothing cam, it's not alcohol. They're clearly off their face on something that is making them not have full control of their own actions. They need help. I don't just mean for the public's safety, which is obviously a big part of this. I mean for themselves. They're clearly in a state where they should not be out in the cold desert, to freeze to death. So
part of the challenge, and I had thought about this, Ken, after we had talked a little bit about it before, because my general reaction is, too bad for them. And it may seem callous and horrible, but almost everyone else I mentioned that to who's from the U.S. is essentially the same way about it, because these are people who have chosen to be in the position they're in.
It doesn't surprise me.
It's not that there aren't programs, and it's not that there aren't things that they could go take advantage of. They choose not to. They actually choose to be in the position they're in for whatever crazy reason it might be. We have those people who pathologically will just keep getting themselves arrested at some point so that they have a place to go to that they feel comfortable in.
I understand that.
Stuff like that. And we have shelters, and we have places for food kitchens and stuff like that, but I have been amazed by how many people choose not to take advantage of those programs.
It's very difficult.
Down the street.
It's very difficult to think about that when you're not addicted to a drug, right? When your mind is chemically altered to a point where nothing is more important than sating that urge, where you will literally prefer to die on the street in the cold and not to eat and spend the money that you do get from begging or from stealing on drugs, right? It's not a choice. That's the problem. But the choice is gone.
The problem is a lot of people, some people are doing everything they can to just escape their reality.
Yeah.
To the point, and this is where we get callous, and it's not every case, but one of the situations, I was talking to a third party, one of the gals who came down on the trip, one of the older gals, about similar situation, because this is after we'd talked, and I brought it up and was trying to understand my thoughts on it. And one of the things is we've seen those people who, I've gone to people in need and offered them my leftover food, something that was completely packaged that just we hadn't gotten to, but we took the leftovers, and offered them the food, and they got offended and got pissed off that I wasn't giving them money.
That's because they're addicted to drugs and want to spend it on drugs. Like I said, I'm not saying they're being polite and nice. I'm saying they need help.
But that's the case where I say, well, then I'm sorry. You've put yourself in this position. I'm going to walk away now. And so I guess it's more. I don't feel a need to engage them in any way. That there are opportunities where they could go get help if they wanted it, and they choose not to. So I'm not going to go out of my way to do it. They want an easy answer to something that they're going to use to escape reality versus taking responsibility for the actions and for the position they're in.
Again, it's not a choice, so that's the problem. You're making an assumption that it's a choice. First of all, it's lack of education, right?
At some level, there is a choice, though. There is a choice that I could take this money I've received and either go spend it on more drugs or get food. Or there's a choice that says I could go, instead of spending my time amongst people begging and doing something for money, I could go to the places where they will feed me, clothe me, give me education, get me back in the workforce and things like that, but they choose to not.
I agree. They choose to not because they're addicted to drugs. That's the point. My point is, if they were first more educated in the very first place about the drugs and the harm of drugs, and they were in a culture where they are, all their friends and family are doing drugs and they get taken into it, right, before they're fully educated often, because a lot of these people are addicted before they even graduate high school, right? So before they've even been fully educated, they're already addicted to these drugs. And they go off and try in search of more because they're addicted. Once you have literally changed the chemistry of your mind to being altered into a way of being addicted to these substances, you don't have a choice. It's not a choice anymore. And more importantly, the statistics show that in places where they actually do, enforce some proper help, Portugal being a great example of a reformation of how drug policies were changed over time, they actually have reduced the number of drugs being used in these countries. So the reason I bring up Portugal was because I think it was about 15, 20 years ago, they had 1% of the population was addicted to heroin. And that's the highest in the world, ever. 1%. That's 1 out of 100. Meaning most people would know several people addicted to heroin, which is mad. And so what they did, there was a radical policy where they legalized drugs, not because they want people to be free, do as you please. That was actually that was just something that happens with it.
They were
reason
getting
for
rid
it was
of
to change
the
the
negative
culture.
connotation of the
because suddenly people felt like they can get
prison
help.
culture and stuff that goes with it. Yeah,
and it worked. The number of people taking heroin dropped, it just completely dropped.
So one of the challenges, though, and it's hard in any instance for us in the United States to look at the examples of, especially somewhere honestly the size of Portugal, because that doesn't even register to us as a state. That is the size of New Hampshire, one of our smallest type states here in the United States. And in that sense, whenever you think of what it might take to adjust the problems we're having here in the United States with things specific like drug addiction, you have to think of how would you make it so that no one in Europe was addicted to drugs.
That's a bit different because, like you said,
it's not much different. There are different laws, but we have state laws here that supersede most things when it comes to federal.
If you said EU, I might be more understanding, but the whole of Europe, that's like Russia. Like that culture is so alien to us. It's like you guys
Russia
looking at China.
Itself is more Asia, but
depends who you talk to. I mean, okay, Ukraine is part of Europe, but it's currently occupied by Russia, right?
But I'm just saying. But even just think of the landmass and the kind of countries that exist within. And that's fine, even the EU. But to try to fix that problem across the EU, because when people say that about the United States as a whole, that's really what they're saying, is to fix this problem across all of the EU. And that's a challenge. And so what we have is places that are trying to do it at local levels at all over the country with different varying levels of success. And part of our biggest challenge is I personally believe we're in a culture in the United States where we're not trying to actually solve anyone's problems. We're just trying to keep everybody at a state where they are able to maintain in such a way that they're able to provide money back into the ecosystem, right?
Correct.
Yep. And I say that with pharmaceuticals and things like that as a whole, because there's no advantage to them of finding a way to make it so that I could just give someone a shot and they would no longer be addicted to something, right? There's no advantage to a pharmaceutical for doing that because then they've done it once and they've cured it. They want to get people addicted to whatever drug they're selling for the rest of their lives. So in a way, it's a challenge because I can understand your revulsion or your reaction to kind of how you saw the situation, especially in the face of such economics that are happening in Vegas, where people from around the world are coming to gluttonously spend money on an experience.
Literal towers of gold looking down on the poor.
To people, well, so that's part of the problem, right? It's not, if it was truly done in the way, the poor would be kept from the strip. But they're not. It's public. It's open. Anyone can go. And so what you instead have is you have poor who choose to congregate there to try to get access to some of the riches that are in the area, to have people give them money and give them things. Just like you have a lot of cases street workers there who are doing legitimate jobs, but they're like ridiculous. I don't have a good answer, but I know that in a way, maybe it's a callousness that I feel having experienced it for many years, that I don't know if there's I don't believe there's an easy fix.
Oh, absolutely not. I don't think there is an easy fix.
And I don't think it's necessarily wrong that it's existing in the way it is, because these are, again, in a lot of cases, people have chosen to be where they're at and to shirk the help that's been offered. And people who will claim that it's everyone else's fault they're in the position they're in.
Oh, I'm
and
not
won't do
claiming
anything
that.
to better themselves. No, I mean, I'm not saying you are, but I've experienced these people. And I've watched people put themselves in this position when everyone around them was trying to save them from themselves. But they still did it. And the problem is, we can't snatch someone off the street for making dumb decisions. We can't yank someone off the street, put them in. We can't until they do something truly illegal or they harm someone and threaten someone else. If they threaten themselves, there's limits to what we do in this country to choose what is best for them. Because you can argue a lot of things about what people do to hurt themselves.
Oh, it's fine to be homeless in the UK. We actually do have a homeless problem here. I mean, comparatively, it's minor compared to what's in the US, but we do have a homeless problem, especially in London, for example, and cities. But with the way that we see the homeless is, you know, if you want to become homeless, you can. That's fine. You can do that if you want. There is a lot of help available, etc. as well. And most homeless are very kind people. They absolutely accept help, and they will, if you offer to buy them food. We do this frequently. Every time we're in Edinburgh, we see homeless people. We've made it a rule that we will always try to buy them food. Last time we saw a guy and his dog outside a KFC, so we bought him a KFC. And we gave his dog the chicken poppers. And he seemed to really enjoy that. And, you know, that's the kind of thing we should do. And I have a lot of respect for people who do buy them food, and that's good of you saying that you buy homeless food in the past and stuff. That's great. And you're doing the right thing by doing that, by the way. Don't give them money because they can spend it on drugs. But the truth is, we don't see people like that in Scotland and anywhere in Scotland. And admittedly, like you said, there's a size difference. But even if we just compare Scotland to Las Vegas, then, right? I think that's more of a comparison.
Well, but also remember, Las Vegas is a hyper-realization of a place.
True.
That is not a normal place. And if you go from Las Vegas, from the Strip, and go out into the outskirts where normal people live, it's not the same.
Absolutely. And I've been to both.
So that's the thing, is just remember that Las Vegas Strip is a very microcosm, unique location.
But it's still within the same city limits. And I was saying to Kitten, the thing that really astounds me is the amount of money that flows through these places. Both the food, never mind the gambling, right? That is insane. And it's already going to be taxed to hell, I realize this. But it's not as if poor casino owners aren't making the money that they want, right? And I was saying to Kitten, if 1% of the money that goes through those casinos, 0.1%, went into helping the homeless through social programs, education programs, etc., more readily available. Maybe some vans go out and help feed them, that type of thing every night, right? This sort of stuff, giving out blankets. I bet it would solve the problem, or at least reduce it to a point where it's minor. Because right now, it's in a scary place. The fact that you can't walk through certain areas of Vegas is crazy. I can't believe that it's a first world country. Even if Vegas is a very unique place and a unique circumstance, and I read online that Nevada is one of the fourth worst in the US for drug abuse. I still feel like there's more programs available, more government help, and most importantly, some kind of, you know, law in place, some kind of power given to the local government where they can say, this person is a danger to themselves and the public and should be put into forcible rehabilitation. Because we do that in the UK. There is a point where you can say that you are...
Yeah, we don't forcibly put people in in care like that unless they have committed a crime.
But even if it, I know that the U.S. does this with people who seem to be suicidal. If somebody is seen to be suicidal, they seem to be doing self-harm, even though there's no definitive proof. They can still be clinically put away if a doctor says it's acceptable.
Yeah,
why can't we do the same with rehab?
It takes a lot of effort to do that.
Yeah, it does, and it should, right?
Most people don't, and so there's.
But my point is just that I think that's the best approach is if we actually start actively solving the problem with social programs, social reform, take the money from the vast amount of luxury flowing through there already and put it into helping the people around. Besides, isn't the benefit of these casino owners, because 1% loss in profits, but then allowing the whole city to be safe, people to walk through, etc., it means that more people might come to Vegas. You know, how's that a bad thing?
So part of the challenge is I don't know if there's any lack of people coming to Vegas right now.
Oh, I wouldn't say there's a lack, but I imagine that if you knew it was safer, it would certainly help. And even if it doesn't economically improve things, which there's no need for it to economically improve. It's not as if Vegas is lacking income. People spend their life savings there every day. You know, I think the issue is just the ethics behind it. These people need help, and I think there are resources available to it, and it's not happening. And I don't see why. Even if they made a bad decision in the past, even if they're daily making bad decisions, I don't see why. I know the stats will prove around the world that there have been these kind of issues before, where with poverty and drug abuse, general squalor, that can be addressed by social programs. So my main point is just this: that in my experience with Vegas, I as much as I enjoyed many aspects of it, I was thoroughly disgusted, and I found it abhorrent how there's such horrific poverty and squalor right next to the luxury and exorbitant gluttony that is the Vegas strips. Right next to it. Right next door. Madness. And I think one of the biggest problems is that when people visit, they go to the strip and they don't leave it. They won't see that. They have no idea. I imagine if more people did what we did and walked around Vegas and actually saw it, they'd probably change some opinions, you know? I feel like more people need to go out and experience it and talk to these people, you know? And I think that would really change people's mindsets.
I think it's an interesting perspective you provide, Ken. I don't see things changing much.
Oh, I don't either. I think any governor who's put in place.
I don't think it's a lack of people knowing it exists. I don't think there's a lack of understanding or knowing it's there.
I think it's the rich not knowing that it's there.
See, I don't even think it's the rich not knowing. I think it's the rich not caring. There's a big difference there. As much as, like I say, most social programs that people spend in the rich in the United States is more for a tax benefit than it is for any actual negativity they feel for how people are treated. Because I will always argue that money is not the answer when it comes to helping people. It's physical time and effort is what will actually help people. But one of my challenges is that I don't think you can really judge what's happening based on Vegas, because Vegas
I'm not blaming
is such a microcosm. It's
Absolutely.
such a unique thing.
I
and
know
Vegas
that.
exists to make rich people more money. It is what it's there for.
Yeah.
And everything is structured around that. It's a mob city that was built around mobsters basically making money and laundering money and things like that. And to some level, it's on the up and up now, but it's not far removed from that.
No.
And we have homeless issues in Denver. We have
Every city
around to some levels. And I have seen the combination of people who truly need help, people who are taking advantage of people's generosity, people who really actually enjoy the lifestyle they've gotten into. And it's a challenge across the board, because that's one of those things that comes with how much freedom we try to provide here in the U.S. And it's freedom of good and freedom of bad, because you have to take one with the other.
You do.
Well, I say that, Ken, because when you start cherry picking which freedoms are truly free and which things the government needs to control, it gets really scary quick.
We already do. It's called the law. That's the whole point of the law.
To a degree, right? But it all depends on what you base that upon. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people who will try to do it based on religious viewpoints as to what's right and wrong, versus what some people might consider good moral viewpoints, versus people who might consider things as just in the sake of public safety, right?
Well, that's the thing. We try to base things on religion, but in the end, religion is only still based on the society it's based upon. Like, even if you look at the strictest of Islamic societies, they still make certain leeways for the rich or for whatever they think is socially appropriate, right? I'm not saying. Trust me, I'm not pro-religion in any which way. Trust me, but I'm just saying. In the end, social preference of the masses, and more importantly of the rich, is more important than that of religion. Laws do exist for that very reason, and that's why I do think freedom is restricted in every single country. No anarchist country can exist for longer than a few hours, right? Because they'll get overthrown very quickly. Because with anarchy comes, there's no restrictions, people go power mad, and a new world order will be set in a matter of hours. Anarchy cannot exist. We need restrictions, we need law. And I don't think anybody would disagree with that point, or no sane man or woman would disagree with that point. But what we do need is a sensible amount of law where the line changes over time, where we discuss it, and where the culture and society changes as well. And I think we all know this, right? This is common sense. But I think right now, from what I've seen, when I traveled to Vegas, specifically Vegas, I saw something that shocked me personally. I was really in astonishment that this could exist in what we call a first world country. That alone makes me think, never mind all the other problems the US has in terms of water supplies to certain areas being completely polluted and undrinkable. But the fact that, and never mind the gambling itself, which itself is very concerning. But the fact that there's that many homeless and that many people addicted to drugs walking the streets, freezing and dying, right, every winter. The fact that exists in a first world country makes me question whether it is a first world country. As an outsider. And I know I am judging the whole of USA by one small area, but, it seems a bit like a cancerous tumor to me when I see that, of the whole US.
Gotcha, Ken. Like I said, it's an interesting perspective to hear, and something that I guess it's something I've been aware of for my entire life, for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't shock me, and just like it doesn't shock me that there's areas in the United States that have not been recovered from certain disasters and other things, because this is what happens when you let
greed,
consumerism be your real religion and your real driver for things. And we are not in a place in the United States where people want to truly take care of each other and things like that.
I don't know if
people don't want it here.
You're right, and I don't know if you remember 3 years ago or so. I remember saying I think I'm quite libertarian, and I said that on the show. I was like, I think I really believe in personal freedom to the extreme, and I really did. And over time, I don't know if it's growing up or just experiences, but this one especially, like, I still thought to myself I'm somewhat libertarian. To an extent, I do kind of believe, like, if you want to go and drive your car with your seatbelt off, you should do that, and if you die, it's your own fault, right? That's kind of the way I see it. But now I'm getting to the stage where I'm saying, well, personal freedoms, at some point, they harm others, and it's not personal anymore. And I think that's kind of where my line is. Because I think once if you decide to take a bunch of drugs, like, you go do you, that's fine. But when you're on the streets walking around threatening to stab people, it ain't personal freedoms anymore. That's a societal problem. That's
as long as the person hasn't stabbed anybody, they're still only hurting themselves.
Why wait till they stab someone? They said they're going to do it.
But most of these people haven't and don't. It's a numbers thing. You have a lot of people who say a lot of crazy stuff, but it doesn't mean they're actually doing it.
You say it's a numbers thing, but the stats don't look good for the U.S. That's the thing. They don't look good.
What? Just because they're homeless doesn't mean they're violent.
Absolutely. But the homelessness in itself is a bad stat.
But again, it's not something. That's where just being homeless, you don't just fix that by rounding people up and putting them in a drunk tank or some kind of program to try to say, hey, stop taking drugs.
True.
Yeah, that doesn't fix the homelessness, right? It's don't move to Vegas thinking you're going to be one of the few stars that's going to ever exist and thus blow your whole paycheck and make poor decisions, and now you're stuck trying to live off of unrealistic goals. Yes, some things might put you down bad because you got behind on bills and things like that. Well, stop overindulging and look at the programs that do exist to help you get back on your feet and take advantage of them. Don't have so much pride to think that it's beneath you or stuff like that. There's so many problems and aspects with it. Absolutely. And yeah, some people need a leg up, and some people need family or others to come search for them and help them out of the situation they're in. But it's hard to expect, the society as a whole to do it on such a scale. And that's one of the challenges, because we have such a scale here to try to pass something that says this is how everyone in the country needs to fix this problem. It's not going to take. It's something that local individual areas have to take on their own selves. And so there's no quick, easy fix. And there's I don't even know what to say, because of all the problems the United States has, yes, there's a lot that are humanitarian in a way when it comes to our own people.
That's true.
And it's difficult to focus on any specific one as to where do you start. And the challenge is we have a ton of social programs that already exist.
Yeah, but okay, I've also looked into that as well. And most of the social programs in the US, for example, if you think of the is it the AA you guys have? Alcoholics Anonymous? It's a Christian-based thing. Very Christian.
That's not a social thing. That's a go-to if you choose to as a way to try to manage alcoholism.
Well, okay, but when you think of social programs, I don't just think government-mandated ones. I do think in general. But I do think this is also sponsored by the government in certain areas anyway. But my point being that there's a lot of Christian-based things in the US that make it kind of difficult. Kind of like the abortion problem in the US. I know that I think it's 1 out of 3 hospitals in the US are Catholic and don't provide any abortion services or any kind of don't provide information to do with sexual health, etc., because they believe in abstinence. And there's just some crazy stats with this kind of stuff that just maddens me.
But I mean, a lot of that goes into anything that's a private organization. They don't have to follow those standards because it's privately owned.
And that's the other issue, right?
It's their own thing.
Private medicine.
That's specifically a piece of. I mean, you have Christian organizations because they fund it themselves, and therefore they can. Because again, freedom to exclude or choose how you base your programs and stuff. There's no one good answer to any of this. Do I think that people should probably try to do things better for each other? Yes, but at the same time, there's a lot of people who don't make it very easy for themselves to be helped. And so it's not just you offer and it works. There's a level of everybody has to get on board together to make these things work. And there's too many people that are out there for themselves.
Well, my only message to anybody, just at the end of the show here, is that if you ever see a homeless person, please feel free to not just, if you can't afford to buy them anything, that's fine, but even just talking to them for 2 minutes, I think can be a big eye-opener to anybody out there, because the truth is, they're probably very lonely, and they probably do want some help, and I would say just say hi to them. If you can buy them a meal, then you should. And that's that. I think Wayne just got cut off as well, so I didn't mean to. I didn't cut him off myself. I promise. But anyway, that's the end of the show. So I won't try and get him back. On behalf of both me and Wayne, I hope you guys had an enjoyable show. I'm sorry it got kind of dark towards the end, but it was something I did try to keep it to the end for that very reason. I knew it would get a little bit not heated, but political, let's say. So you've been listening to Show X live on VideoRussians.com. Please do join us in Discord. I imagine we're going to play some games after the show, and that'll be good fun. Yeah, Wayne just said the call died for him. I'll see if I can get him back on quickly. Let's see. Just to say bye. Hello, sir. That was weird.
Yep, of all the times, just call it good. But
hey, at least it's at the very end of the show. I was just going to wrap up anyway.
Hey, absolutely. So, thank you for the show, everyone. I don't know if you're still finishing up or if you'd already cut it.
No, not cut yet.
Okay. Thank you for the show, everyone. Appreciate it. Glad that we could get back. Sorry that we got onto a topic towards the end there that was as real as it may have been.
I thoroughly enjoyed it personally.
we will have more to discuss coming next week as we get back with some things to follow up about CES, which also just happened this last week. And admittedly, because I've been on travel, had not had an opportunity to digest all the new technology and shinies they've shown, let alone me still traveling around and doing some things as I am not yet home. And thank you to Earthweaver for letting us crash on his area to keep the show going this week. So that's what I've got for that, but thank you everybody for tuning in. And Ken, if you'd run us out for the week.
Absolutely. We don't have the outro, so I'm just going to just do the last spiel, and that'll be that. You're listening to Show X on VTOProductions.com. Be sure to help us out all around the internet that you can. I just said the word internet. That's a weird thing to say. No, isn't that strange? Like saying when you're surfing the web.
Hey, not as bad as if you're finding your way through the inner tubes.
Hey, that's fine. I like that because that's like a reference to George Bush's silliness. I like it.
You have to have Rangoon pizza with you.
Oh, that's right. We should get some more crab rangoon pizza.
for the
Side
show?
note.
Noted.
No, side note. There's a place here in Cedar Rapids where Earthweaver is at that. What's it called?
Fong's Pizza.
Fong's Pizza, which is pizza but inspired from more of an Asian tradition and such with some crazy toppings, including what we had, a pizza that was basically based off of crab rangoon, or wontons, as people would get, and was quite phenomenal, as well as we had a jalapeno poppers pizza, but they had so many varieties, so we'll give them a shout out because it's a place that Earth hadn't been before. We went to last night, had leftovers today for breakfast, and was phenomenal. Plus they served it up in wonderful sized mugs for their drinks and things like that. It was a good experience coming back from vacation.
I forgot to mention, on the last night just before we flew out, we actually went to a all-you-can-eat sushi place, and I didn't expect it to be any good. I thought it was going to be terrible. I was like,
Dude,
oh man, $45, that's nothing.
No.
That's going to be terrible. And I was so shocked.
These are so good.
So it was a Korean barbecue in one side of the restaurant. The other side of the restaurant was the sushi place. And they were like, do you want both, one or the other? And we said, oh, just sushi. We're pescatarian, right? So just sushi's fine. So we go there, and nobody else is sitting there. Everybody else is at the Korean barbecue. So we get two chefs to ourselves, and they're like, okay, order everything off the menu you want. You can only have one of a couple of things because they're like the really expensive things. They're like, otherwise help yourself. Anything that you don't finish, we charge again. So you need to like as an a la carte.
If you order a roll, you finish that roll, or you will pay more.
So I got the receipt at the end. I took a photo of it actually because it really amused me. The total amount we would have spent if we had did it a la carte and not as a buffet would have been about $150, but instead we spent $75. So we ate double what we should have according to that menu.
Hey,
so good! Oh my god!
We have places here that are $25 for all you can eat sushi.
Oh, I have to. Okay, we're coming to Colorado.
We're
on our way. We're on our way now. I love sushi.
Come to Colorado. We have places like that Sushi Boat, all these other places and it's legit good sushi.
Oh man!
So, in fact, down in the Asian town area where I know that we have a buffet place that has sushi on their buffet, and they don't have quite those rules, but you can also get all the regular stuff. And I want to say that buffet is like $20 a person.
Oh my
god! All you can eat anything. So, hey,
dude, I love sushi.
Opportunities. Just letting you know.
Sushi and Mexican food. And that's the good thing about Vegas. It was just everywhere. Anywhere you turn, there was just Mexican food and sushi.
Yep.
So good. Okay.
Our family had lobster at Christmas dinner. Yep.
Nice. Okay, you've been listening to Show X on VTOProductions.com. This show's been a bit of a roller coaster. Thank you for tuning in. You can support us all around the web. You can support us by subscribing to us on Twitch. I assume most people already have. You can also support us by giving us your pennies on Patreon.com. / let me make sure I get this right. 'Cause I always get confused which one it is. It's Patreon.com / Show X. All right, not VTW Show X, just / Show X. You can subscribe to us on Reddit, which is where if you want to talk about this show, like this episode after you've seen it, you can. This is the best place to do it. Go to reddit.com / Show X. That's where you go to talk about the show. Every single show is auto-posted there. It's auto-generated. Go in there, upvote the show if you can. That'd be great. Share it as well. And comment anything you want to say about the show there too.
Perfect.
You can check us out on twitter.com / VTW Show X, twitter.com / DocDead for Mr. Wayne, and twitter.com / GoX for myself. On Facebook, search for Show X there, and we frequently post news that just pops up on any of our media streams and any memes and stuff that we think are funny. Check that out; it's good fun. That's our more casual place for following. Twitter is more the place to see just news stuff, or for personal accounts for personal stuff. And lastly, I'm going to go shout out to my DeviantArt because I quite like my DeviantArt because I've been using it as my main place to upload photos since Flickr has got a maximum 1000 now, and that made me delete it, by the way. I hate my Flickr now, it's gone. Screw those guys. So check out my DeviantArt. It's gohex.deviantart.com, and I've got a bunch of Vegas photos and stuff up there as well. Some of the sad homeless people, if you want to feel sad, and some people doing graffiti and stuff, and one guy holding a sign that says "F you" because that was nice. Okay. And lastly, you can email on the show, showx@VTrussians.com. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for joining us, both Earthweaver and Mr. Wayne today. It's been much appreciated. It's nice to see you, Earth. It's been a while. All right. Thank you all for listening. We'll be in Discord if you see. So hopefully see you all there soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.